I thought we weren't going to talk about that, but...
right?
No, we're talking about Fight Club, so we don't talk about
you
the
just
other
got
thing.
kicked out of Fight Club.
I don't want to be the one woman in Fight Club, though. I don't want to do
about it. And if we're all talking about it, then nobody's talking about it.
Look, can I be Bob?
Right.
Because I have bitch tits.
Wow. Bringing me back with that one. That's old. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Everybody got that one. That was
The movie
fantastic.
opens up. This is Bob. He has bitch tits.
That's amazing.
This is going to be
Love
a
it.
great movie.
Right. And here we go.
All right, everybody. Welcome again to another news roundup. I am your host and moderator, Cypher. Here I am joined today by Art Black,
How's it going?
Mateo DeGaulle,
Hey, what's up?
and joining us again on the news roundup is Universal Discord. And joining us for the first time is Designated Downer. And this is the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. If this is the first time you've joined us on any of these things, we are a podcast born out of a funky little debate community on Facebook, and we cover a host of different topics. Our most recent podcast was released yesterday, which is Art and Politics, which we cover aestheticism as politics or politics as aestheticism. And we talk about why it's kind of an important concept to know about, what it means, and if it's hurting the discourse in American politics today. So go ahead and check that out on your favorite streaming service, and wherever you get it. We're on pretty much all of them. Before we get into the news roundup, I'd like Designated Downer to tell our audience a little bit about himself or themselves, and let's get to it. We can't hear you, dude.
Turn your mic on.
I think your mic is muted. Oh no.
Are we
I hear
good?
it.
There
Got
we go.
it.
Hey, all right. Hey, guys. Designated Downer off the top rope. Audio issues notwithstanding. I am the new official co-host of Universal Discourse. I break into political discourse and debate, open discussion, stuff like that.
Oh, cool. What is one of your favorite political topics to get into?
Definitely the issue of race versus class issues. I'm an ex-bootlicker turned anti-capitalist as well, so anything economic really gets my gears turning.
That's cool. All right.
So how would you describe yourself politically?
I describe myself politically as a left-leaning centrist. I've been described by others as an enlightened centrist.
Okay.
I'm just going to own it.
Right. Hey, that's the way to do it.
Whatever works. Radical centrist unite, right? Universal Discourse, you are joining us again. I think this is your second time on this show. I've been on the coup a couple of times now, but why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, a little bit about how do I even start? I basically am a researcher right now. I am the director of training and research for a counter-extremism
Looks like
organization.
we have an audio issue as well.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
No, you can. There's a little bit of pop in your audio.
Oh,
I can hear
it's
you, though.
probably just me popping. Okay. So I'm director of research and training with a counter-extremism organization. Work in human rights, also all things indigenous and quantum theory. And I'm a streamer on Twitch and published author and an analyst and with military background. So.
Well, Nick, so let me just jump in and say that talking about me. So I am among other things, a former intelligence analyst, linguist, and I feel a personality, but sometimes I made it that for a while. But no, we have a kind of an interesting crew here. So I can think of like a left libertarian looking towards ways to move past capitalism at some point. A former Republican and conservative, been on a slow evolution and have now found that kind of accelerating over the last couple of years. So I think at this point, for instance, I was a big Andrew Yang fan. I like the idea ideas and kind of a futuristic approach to the evolution of our economy, rather than looking back at. I feel like sometimes a lot of left too anchored in like 19th century theory and thinking, and a lot of what we're going through now is stuff that really couldn't have been foreseen back then. So that's just my little quick detour off of wherever we were going. So I'm back to you, Cypher.
All right. I am also kind of in the same boat with Art Black here a little bit. I am a former left-leaning libertarian turned, I guess, SOCDEM. I don't know. People consider me a shit lib because I am.
Because you are.
Because I am. No, because I have some more quote unquote conservative takes when it comes to foreign policy, and I'm not 100% anti-capitalist, so whatever. Former military turned data scientist, currently in between jobs, thanks COVID. But we're going. So, and then Mateo, go ahead and give us a little spiel about yourself, and then we can get into the news roundup.
I'm an Intel analyst, not to be confused with Intel analyst. I can't go into details here, but it's pretty gross.
Mateo OnlyFans when?
Are we
Dropping
talking
this spring.
anal probes and flashy thingies? Wow.
Yeah, I specialize in all of it.
I knew it.
The alien
I don't even
abduction
know
experience is a premium service.
He's a deep prober.
Spent some time in Roswell. I picked up a few things.
A few things.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of oversharing today.
We went from Bob to Paul. I think that's perfect.
So obviously, we like to joke around. We don't. The news roundup is something that I put together in order for my podcast to be able to come together, produce a little more content that's low in intensity. And we're trying to get more of Twitch community onto this news roundup. We do it every Wednesday. So if you're watching us from Twitch and you're a streamer, or if you're a podcaster, go ahead and hit me up pretty much anywhere. Crowdsourced Politics, that's with ED for Twitch, which is our Twitch channel, and you can hit up same thing for YouTube and Twitter. Or on Discord, I am CSP with brackets Cypher on Discord. So go ahead and hit me up if you want to get on this program. We stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're going to be expanding that to Thursdays as well, probably within the month or so. So what is on your all's mind here? What is one of the bigger stories of the day that you would like to cover? Anybody can do it.
Impeachment.
Of course.
You took the good one.
And this, I looked into how they were going to argue this. A couple of weeks ago, I got the memo from one of the delegates that went around, and the position that that was going to be argued was, I was happy to hear about it, was that they were going to finally take on this originalism versus textualism, whether we can revise for a modern context because of the way the complaint was framed in the First Amendment. So they're going to finally open the floor to that officially, which I think is about time.
Okay. I actually did not get to catch much of the impeachment. So what are some of the primary things about that interest you with the complaint?
The way that the party of Trump is attempting to frame their complaint, their grievances in the First Amendment, that I have a First Amendment right to effectively do what he did. Clearly, he doesn't have the First Amendment right. So he's forced the discussion on, do we interpret that First Amendment in the original context or in this context, in the age of extremism? They're forcing the issue. The decisions that are going to be made.
Crap. Damn it. Great.
Sure.
I accidentally exited out of my web program. Did not hear anything you just said with that last bit, that last 10 seconds or so. I am so sorry.
Do you want me to repeat it, or?
Yeah, if you could, Uni, could you just repeat your statement? I was tabbing out and I accidentally hit the X button.
Mine or Downers?
Both. We didn't get any of it.
Oh. So, okay, quickly. The details about the heartbeat, blah, 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 blah. Okay, blah. The way that the Trump party framed their grievance is that they framed it as a First Amendment grievance. So it finally forces officially, and maybe definitively, the issue of how to interpret that First Amendment in the original context, such as freedom of speech, no law abridging, such as fighting words, and such as that very misunderstood fire in a crowded theater comment, by the way, which was not an opinion but a comment. So is it interpreted in its original context, which is 250 years old, or is it interpreted in a modern context? If they finally establish that as the precedent, we have ourselves a brand new constitution. It's incredibly exciting.
That is wow. I didn't anticipate. Didn't think about that.
Decades we've been waiting.
So much for bringing it up. That's awesome.
So that's why I think it matters. I don't really care about the ad nauseum. I'm sorry, but we were there watching the tweets. We saw it. We were like, okay, I know. But what I was sent from someone in the human rights industry who was there reporting to us was a man. I didn't realize there was a man there who, I guess, his son died in that thing.
Mm.
And I went, oh. I totally didn't see that coming. That was kind of awful. I have the clip if anybody wants to see it. It was pretty bad.
Wow.
I don't want to see it again. No fun. No thing. I hit my limit or something. I went. I can't handle it. But the idea about the Constitution revisions. Oh man, it's been a long time coming. I hope that is the outcome.
I do as well. Designated Downer, when you had made your comment, we had lost audio because I accidentally exited out of my web browser. Could you also repeat your comment that you had made previously? If you remember. And we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
He's not talking.
Oh, it looks frozen.
Looks frozen.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect headshot, though.
Yeah.
When my screen freezes, it doesn't never look good. Ever. It's always the worst possible moment, you know.
Right. Yeah, I'm turning my head open like.
Or you do that where you're about to sneeze face, you know.
Right.
It's always the other face.
And it's stuck like that for 5 minutes.
It always catches that face that you spent an hour trying to get rid of before you turn the camera on. I don't get it. It's uncanny. I don't think it's right. I think there's something Kool-Aid about that.
There must be something up with that.
It's Intel Pro. They've hijacked our webcams.
Oh my! I can only think of the footage they've gotten from me on that. It's a little disturbing. Well, kind of on the topic that we were discussing before. Well, gets his tech issues resolved. It's an interesting kind of a exploration into the idea terrorism and how you can, for instance, use the language Trump does to speak to a large number of people, and that a small number of people will take it to some degree literally. Like when he says the election's been stolen, you need to fight like hell, get our democracy back. The understanding that a lot of his defenders will use is that, well, he's speaking in kind of a general stylized sense, and this is not meant to be taken literally, but, for in a figurative sense, he wants people to, talk to their men and use the democratic processes we have available to get all this sorted out, yada, yada. But the problem is the way, the kind of the bombastic way he talks about it. I mean, that's them taking a very, enlightened spin on it. But a more literal spin on it would be that he's speaking a lot more literally, and that the democracy was literally stolen up as we did in 1776 and get our democracy or lose it. And the election was stolen and all that. So you kind of bifurcation of arguments where on one hand you're saying, yes, absolutely, this is just protected speech, it's First Amendment, he's just telling people that they need to talk to their congresspeople, and they kind of invent meaning for him that could plausibly be there. Equally plausibly is that he's speaking literally, and that people were incited to act up was a direct result inciting them to act up. So it's just an interesting development that we have going on here, in that we've never had anyone who's so shamelessly willing to exploit that type of, that loophole or that gray area. And realistically, we all know what he did and why he did it. And we basically just now have a segment of society that's willing to just pretend that's not what happened, even though it led to a large number of people on camera saying, President Trump invited us. We're here to fight for Trump. So how he handles that sort of thing, where you have, on one hand, a very kind of gray area free speech, idea that is under threat, but on the other, a very brazen manipulation of people's emotions and motivations by telling them that the entire foundation of the republic has just been undermined, and they need to personally come to a set place and do act, or else they will have lost. It's not really an easy answer, especially if you have an IQ of under, like refrigerator temperature, and you just pretend that, well, this isn't, what it looks like, guys. This is, this is just something else, and they just showed up on mistake or on their own behalf, and my words had nothing to do with it, which we all know at a certain level is just not true. But at a real, like a level that you could prove it in court, you kind of can't. And unfortunately, if you have people willing to exploit that type of awfulness, that's a big problem for the public.
No, I completely agree with that, Art. Our institutions and democratic processes in general are kind of built on the idea that some of these things will be followed as norms, and we've talked about this before on our actual podcast when we had Trump's first impeachment. Excuse me. First impeachment as a topic, where we broke that down into two parts. And it seems like we're experiencing this all again with it. So it becomes a kind of,
I mean, the founders, whether you like them or not, were basically like honor system aristocrats of their era. They were more or less people that operated on a certain amount of a personal honor or decorum that came along with being an aristocrat. And want to say it's silly and outdated or whatever, but that's kind of the system that we inherited. Is we kept up a lot of those traditions of decorum, and even though we had some awful things happen underneath it, at that very high management level, certain like subculture that existed out there that led to peaceful transitions of power for over 200 years. And now we're kind of dismantling that and getting to more just like, well, hey, you know what? If the law doesn't stop us and nobody's going to stop us, we're just going to do it. And the problem with that is that while you can go by the letter of the law is not actually designed for bare knuckle. Like, it's just unfortunately not. So that kind of thing can actually break the system because it wasn't designed to be operated that way. So it might just be an oversight of running a piece of paper that's over 2 centuries old. Here we are.
Yeah. Mateo, you got any thoughts that you'd like to add to this topic?
Yeah. I mean, it's impeachment, so there is no legal standard. But when you look at how people usually talk in politics, it's almost always some crazy inflammatory. If someone were to act on it, you wouldn't have any problem connecting it to the politician type of thing. So it really depends on what you want to happen to Trump, really, whether or not you actually think this is okay, what he did. I mean, you could look at like Cory Booker, who basically explains like the black experience as like, what did he say? Your body becomes broken or you are killed when you deal with police. I mean, obviously he doesn't mean literally, but even the figurative interpretation of that is pretty overblown. But, you know, if people riot like based on those words, we're not going to say anything. But
Right.
Something else too. I forget something about elections, but that wasn't even important. Yeah, I just think it's there's good reasons to impeach Trump. You hear that?
Yeah, Universal.
Got it.
Universal
I heard
Square.
it.
I think
That's all
your
right.
scarf or hair is hitting your mic every once in a while.
Actually, the cord got chewed.
Got you.
So I'm gonna mute it until I can fix it.
Okay.
There are definitely good reasons for the impeachment. Like, I think it's important to at least make it obvious that when you do speak like this, regardless of the hypocrisy I brought up and regardless of what people said before, it's good to have some real precedent in place to say, like, listen, man, you want to fire people up, think twice about it. You want to act like, you know, black people are being hunted by police officers and we're going to get riots. You better think about it the way we had this Trump guy have to think about it. So that's good. It's just he's going to get acquitted again. So you could also look at it like that. Like if you want to say like, oh, nothing happened to him, he got acquitted. It's going to give Republicans that kind of ammo also. So there's good and bad reasons for it. I still think it should happen, but I don't think it's that strong of a case unless you want it to be. Like, I still think it's better than Article 2 of the first impeachment trial. Like, oh my God, that was the dumbest thing. But
it was pretty bad.
I still think there's a lot left up to basically just your politics. Like if you're a Trumpist, you know, this is nothing. You're going to brush this off like you're going to think it's some sort of deep state attack or something. And if you hate Trump, I mean, it's pretty easy to be like, yeah, of course that was inciting violence. I've never seen this in my life. I've never seen any politician act like that. And meanwhile, it's really what they all do, like talking about fighting and everything. I mean, yeah. I understand the context is, you know, the stolen election, but then we can also go back to the people following the 2000 election who still to this day will say George Bush stole the election. And they didn't give up either. They also said it was stolen by Mitch McConnell with Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, they don't stop. It's nonstop. So
I mean, that
it's
was a
basically
power play.
where you land.
There's a bit more truth to the Mitch McConnell.
Oh, it was a
one
power
than there
grab.
was.
No. There are things you could add to it that are not factual, but it's not a contradiction, or there's no reason to inject them here. You're gonna be like, well, and then tell me things that are true, and that's fine. They're true, but
no, I meant like
the truth is that
all I was saying is
it was a power grab. But I'm talking about people. It was a power
2000
grab, and people were calling it something else. They were acting like it was a theft, like democracy was under attack. Like you got to remember all the democracy talk.
Well, no, I do.
Yeah, it was just so overblown. Like honestly, if the people who bought that stuff had any like real like violent streak in them, they would have attacked government officials probably too. We're just lucky that liberals tend to be more peaceful. Like you tell right wingers it's a stolen, and you know they're like 1776. Tell liberals it's
Shall
stolen.
not
And,
be
I don't know.
infringed.
They protest.
Blood, tyranny. Give me my tree watering can. Wait, what?
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's always more violent with them, or not always. It's generally more violent. I don't want to say always. It sounds really bad. So, I mean, I guess you could say maybe Republicans have more of a responsibility there, but that's never going to fly with anyone. You're like, oh well, you know, we've had such a good streak with the lefties. They could get away with that type of speak. It's all right. Bush stole the election. Let them say that. It's just nah. So yeah, good that it's happening. Not good that Republicans are gonna act like it's just another nothing thing that they just brush off. But overall, it's a net benefit.
They were gonna do that anyways, right?
Yeah, definitely. But that's that's why it's not great. But overall, it's a net benefit. I still think it should happen.
I mean, that's more than a fair assessment, I think.
Yeah, make the cost of that kind of language higher than it's been. That's really what's going to come of this, and that's better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only pick there is that, for instance, in 2000, Al Gore came out and said, you know what, I know that there's a lot of talk about this, but, he conceded the election. Like, there was people that said things, but like, you didn't have this incitement from the top, and if you have people that are, having this stray talk at other levels about that, but like, this is what we're expecting from our, and while there's always going to be a certain amount of, combat-oriented metaphors that are thrown around, and that elections are a struggle. They are a fight. You do have two teams during competition. There's sports analogies, but sports analogies are often, combat analogies. So there's that type of language will always be woven in and always has been woven in. But the levels that Trump took it to and the way that it was expressed has never happened before. Like, not in
Harry Reid, probably. I would be shocked if Harry Reid never came anywhere near that type of. And
but
also, Al Gore also
the
pulled away
is,
his concession too, I think, right?
Well, so Gore did for a very brief amount of time a bit of legal investigation, and then once that was over, he immediately conceded again. So
yeah, it was like it was like this.
Okay,
it was like December
let's say Al Gore
10th
was
or something,
like
and then like September 13th.
Let's say Al Gore was a perfect gentleman. I'm talking about people like Harry Reid and just the people who have no problem. They're major leaders in the party and have no problem saying incendiary things, or Cory Booker even.
Right, but incendiary
I mean, there's no shortage of them, past and present.
Right, but Trump was starting this talk in May. Like, he was saying that this was going to be the greatest.
He was starting
election
before he won his first term.
Yeah, he was like, it's only, I will only accept the result of the election if I'm.
I don't mean that as a contradiction. I just threw it in there because it's funny because Trump's so dumb.
No. I mean, but it's true. He didn't accept the results of the election he won. So, but when you have free speech, you have to understand that there's going to be a certain amount of elbows thrown that are going to acceptable because they don't go anywhere. They're just hyper animated a bit, but that's not the same. And weirdly, this is what I was talking about, terrorism. Where is that cutoff line? In this case, it's when people act upon it. Like, it's one thing if you're just using words motivated and go out and vote. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you use some insightful language, but it didn't lead to anything getting, any capitals getting stormed. Sometime around where people trying to kidnap governors or setting off bombs or storming capitals, you realize, maybe we've taken these words too far, and this is a different thing than Harry Reid or Al Gore, trying to motivate people.
Luckily, it is. I mean.
No, it's not. I mean, we've really actually been doing this for hundreds of years. We rarely have this kind of problem, except when it goes to a certain extreme. We have gone to a certain extreme.
Well,
we've had compromises where we basically
look at this thing. When we look at the way we analyze this sort of what he's saying, intel, and we look at psycholinguistics, right? Relationship of thought and language, certain kind of propaganda. And what Trump does is dog whistle. Okay, he dog whistles. He's vulgar. He deflects. He's every fallacy in the books. Got it. Fine. When you test your strategies out on people, dog whistle and see who shows up, and you spend 4 or 5 years in public in that power doing it, it's not. You cannot dismiss his language. You can't dismiss his language anyway. But that is something Americans have never really seen, which is this is how dictatorships start. This is how coups happen. Just because it was a spectacular fail doesn't mean that's not what it was. Doesn't mean that it was just some
Now is that only because it was taken on the
there
Capitol?
With a bunch of what you're saying are diminished capacity? That doesn't mean that's not what it was. So underestimating it is a fatal mistake. He tested. Those were proving grounds. He tested. When he said instead of denouncing the Proud Boys, stand back, stand by, he wasn't letting go of the reins. That should have rung every alarm in everyone's mind, is that, oh, this guy's been building himself a little army. The main argument in the impeachment was that it was, in the word they used exactly anyway, it could be foretold. It was imminent that this would happen. And it's when he whistles and they show up, then he's actually manipulating, then he's actually exploiting, then he's actually inciting as well.
If you look at a lot of these Republicans, there's a good subset out there would vote, but they're literally afraid of their own constituents. They're afraid of the violence that could potentially happen to them and their families because Trump is out there telling them that this is true, and they might have to walk it back to a certain extent, but that extent in public does to private. I mean, a lot of these guys are absolutely, and they're being threatened in private. Or you have some that are true believers, the Matt Gaetzes and all that, who absolutely are in on the Kool-Aid. But you have a lot of guys who are just normal that they probably if they could have a secret ballot would love to get rid of Trump, but they don't. Unfortunately, they know they're going to be caught and called out. And you have some of these guys, they're not protected. They're just regular representatives. I mean, anything could happen to them, to say nothing of them losing their. So you have this, the kind of as a riot to show up and take over a Capitol can very easily go up and hurt your kids, attack your wife. I mean, any kind of harm could be visited on you. And these guys are all aware of it. They know who they're representing, and they know that, they can't just dismount and say, well, I don't know if this is a great idea. They are part of this that is motivated by this weird kind of animal angry that cannot be placated. If you make him mad, he'll hate you forever. He'll do whatever he can to take you out. So, this is so that's all I'm saying is that, like, well, it is a free speech issue, but on the other, this is definitely something that goes past the normal types of incendiary speech we have. I mean, nobody's afraid Bernie Sanders fans mad. Like, this is just one of those things where, you just have a different element that's being motivated. It's a lot more used to violence, a lot more comfortable with it. It's part of the mythos, the 1776, righteous violence mythos. So it's just a different thing, and we need to have a way to deal with it so that we're not.
What you're describing is fascism. Americans aren't used to it, and they do what Greeks do. They spend far too much time talking about it while the Persians are at the gate. We better grow up real fast.
Where were all the fascists, though? Like, I mean, they were told the election was stolen. They were told this is the day to do it. And we got not a small crowd, but one that was so ineffective that Congress was back in session by 6 or 8 o'clock. So where were all the other fascists? Like,
some of them had gotten arrested pre the 6th while they were patrolling DC streets. But I mean, because that was the day to assemble and to organize. That was it. January 6th, right? Weren't they called upon? There was some Proud Boys, whatever. There were some Proud Boys there that were there the week of. They had their own hotel room, and some of them got kicked out and stuff like that. But there was arrest prior to the 6th for some of these people. But to your larger point, that was just more info. To your larger point, there wasn't that many there, and we're kind of lucky for that. Where are they though? Why didn't they? There might not be as many of people with those proclivities as the left is worried about.
Some were at state capitals, actually. Now that I think of it,
but I mean, what happened? Capitals.
You have to realize.
I mean, I feel like those are right winger states though, where they're just like, "Hey, come on in, guys."
Well, I mean, Michigan's not really a right winger state, and there was people there, and there was a group of them that wanted to kidnap the governor. Now, people will say that was some leftist con job or whatever, but it really wasn't, just because the guy
real.
wasn't. Huh?
That was real. Yeah.
No, I meant as far as the guy, one of the people that were arrested, the right says is actually Antifa because he said "fuck Trump."
Oh God.
But he's clearly an anarchist. It's anti-state from a right-wing perspective. So
AWD did that. You have to realize that when he tweeted, these people drove to an airport, purchased a ticket that same day, and flew up there.
Yeah, there was a good amount of people that did that. The people weren't poor by any means.
Were those the ones? There's a lot of people who were just basically senior citizens doping around, and once they got inside, they're like, "Oh, so which ones were those?" I think we can discount what actually happened. A lot of people want to act like it was the last stand of America and democracy versus fascism, but I think this is more of a testament of just how resilient our system really is, how much how little fascism even poses a threat to us.
Oh, no, it always poses a threat anywhere it's found. Just because it failed
On some level,
doesn't
sure,
mean
but
that's
I
not
said
what
how
it is.
little.
And now
But
they
relative
know.
to what people say it is.
Now they know
it's
how to
smaller,
do it.
obviously. Yeah,
They're going to do it without
know.
him because they're going to defend their martyr. Now it's
I
worse.
think you're lagging some, Mateo, but it's okay.
It's going to be worse.
Now, on one hand, we have institutions that some very brazen attempts to commandeer them or at least influence them. A lot of the state officials basically didn't relent. A lot of the didn't relent. Really, they didn't get any traction anywhere, or even the vice president. You know, most of this was focused on trying to like literally pressure Mike Pence into doing something illegal that would give them a plausible chance to overthrow the election. When you have institutions that can push back against this sort of thing, that people aren't trying. It just means that we have institutions that were able to withstand the attack. But we can't live like this. We can't operate a democratic society like this. Well, we don't because but like, what if the military decided, you know what? Maybe we should have a redo. In a lot of countries, that's just how things are. Like, we act like it's impossible, but it's not. It's commonplace. This is how most countries.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah,
okay.
I think Mateo's point is that there has been, in his eyes,
I think we could discount what has been sold to the public for the past 4 years. That's all I'm saying.
Hyperbole.
Like, I mean, if this is how we get to the Third Reich, maybe never mind. That's just a stupid joke.
No, I think the media
well.
puts a spin, and I'm in journalism, which is why I don't consume any of the news unless it's from the source. So I don't believe a word anybody tells me. When they start trying to spin a narrative, yeah, it's this epic. It's like a storybook in a bad video game. And there's this rise of, and I'm like, we don't really need the fairy tale wrapped around the fact that how many people died. That's the end of the fairy tale.
Of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
You could always tie it together. You go back, this is exactly how it happens, and I have a historian friend who agrees. It's like, all right, it could happen, but like I think in America where that was as good as it's going to get. They were told their country was stolen. They were told to rise up. They were given the date. They were given instructions. That was their hurrah. That was just a sad whimper. Congress is back in session in hours.
But that's really discounting, like what happened in Georgia, where Trump tried to have the secretaries do certain results. Like, there's actually a lot on that. Any one of those things could have been a disaster, and the fact that it didn't work it's like standing behind bulletproof glass and somebody shooting at you, and then saying glass worked. Like, what are you mad about? Like, don't worry about him shooting at you.
That's
because
the point
you're
of
fine.
Bulletproof glass.
It works. It is, but yes, that's half the story. But the other half of the story is that not everything sold as bulletproof is, and some things weaken over time, and some things are not up to snuff. And you find all you need is one weak point, and suddenly you're in trouble. So
he's still shooting.
Well, I think, that's all I'm saying. Yes, to the extent that he's still shooting, the fact that the threat didn't work doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means that you have this beautiful mixture of incompetence and and failure. That's great. It's wonderful that it failed, but I think that in the grand scheme of things, we need to punish that it is disincentivized, and that's it. You can't let it be a test run. It needs to be something where they see it as a defeat.
Oh, for sure. No, I agree with that. But what Mateo was saying was the system held, and that's important not to overlook that it held.
Yeah. I'm not saying the odds were against us and we lucked out. I'm saying the odds were in our favor, and this is pretty much how I expected it, and I feel like people should have expected it to go. Actually, it went worse than what I expected, but it's still so much better than what I was sold. I never actually thought these people would reach the fucking Capitol like that. I could never have called.
I think one thing that's important to note is that what would have made it worse is if there had been more cops there and cops had killed more people. Cops, military, or whoever else, and if that
a lot of
had
cops were
been
actually
the
being
case,
friendly to them, which was weird.
I
saw this one. Oh, I saw one video actually. I don't want to say too much.
So there's this one video that everybody is misreading, I think, It's a police officer wearing a MAGA hat, and what he was trying to do, he was trying to extricate.
No. I'm talking about the guy who's like, come on. He's like opening the
like a
barricades
tourist
for them.
gate at Disney World.
yeah.
Exactly. Like a
Screw that.
grand opening just
that
happened. He's like,
happened
let's go,
because
kids.
I keep trying to tell people, I, in my background, whatever, there are protocols that are in place exactly for this type of situation. What you were looking at was a protocol. I keep insisting that people get that through their head, but they're not. It's a protocol. Here's the idea. It was discovered a long time ago that if you let them push the barricade, they'll swarm. If you open it, you can bottleneck and funnel them and control them because you can't stop them. But you can narrow their options. That's why the glass pops out. The whole ground floor of that building is just a thin plexiglass. You can just pop. You're temporarily confused. Well, how did that?
Yeah.
All right, then they caught you because there's your butt hanging out of the window. We're like, oh, we're so waiting for you. Come on in. They've got you. It's better that they have you than that you swarm. And that's a very long-standing protocol. It's been there for decades and decades. That's what you were watching.
Okay. I guess then that's a good thing.
I saw it and went, oh no, I know this is serious because when they pull that protocol, it's serious.
Well, there's so few cops there compared to the amount of people there. The opening the barricade for that makes sense. But I think what Mateo is talking about is that there's videos from inside where there was at least 1 or 2 police officers that seemed super friendly with them, and they were like taking selfies with the rioters and things like that.
That's another part of the protocol.
I was actually talking about the one Discourse was mentioning, but yeah, I guess there's others too.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So if that's part of the protocol, it's part of the protocol. I'll defer to the experts.
Okay.
Special training.
I mean, that's smart. That makes sense.
Yeah, it
like
helps
that.
diffuse the situation.
And it looks bad.
Makes a lot of sense.
But it's special training. But I didn't know that 2 policemen killed themselves either. Did anybody know that? I did not know that.
Yeah, so after the riots, at least 1 police officer, the one that I know of, there was 2, but the specific one I know of was a police officer that couldn't is rectify the right word? His identity as a police officer and his identity as a black man. And after the riots happened at DC, he had an identity crisis, and that led to, at least from the suicide note, led to him committing suicide.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
what the suicide note kind of
depression, is
a
lot of times it doesn't make sense.
So
Really?
Yeah.
You don't want to lose people who have a conscience.
That's true. And
well, people
That's so
things
horrible.
going on.
So
I mean, it's easy to tie these things together, but sometimes things really are unrelated. Like nobody likes to hear that it's a coincidence, but it is.
Well, that was his limit.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
I mean, that
was all he could put up with.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was no more. Okay. So
Yeah, it's a shame.
from the counter extremism angle, I would love to say these poor fools were manipulated into it and they're going to go home and lick their wounds and burn their MAGA hats. It doesn't look like that's the case. Looks the opposite based on numbers and data and intel. It doesn't look like, yeah. So,
sounds like Democrats
this
have a
isn't
good
gonna
chance
go
in the
away.
next national election then.
I was going to say, like,
Well, this brings up
I'm
Taylor
gonna,
Green, right? Go ahead, Art, though. First, we'll get to Taylor Green after you make the point.
I
just be cynical about it. When you have, never interrupt your enemy from making a mistake. What they're doing to back Trump, they feel like they should be doing it right now because that's like the temporary kind of intensity is. But long term, most of the American public, by poll reaction, is not interested in this type of defense of either Trump or of this type of action, and really, if this is what the Republican Party is going to kind of throw themselves behind, be able to latch on to that intensity. You have this extremist kind of a sentiment that is out there that has the Taylor Greens, it's got the Boberts, it's got those people that are huge amount of fundraising and support and interest and intensity. But what it's not getting is moderates, and it's not getting independents. So what they're doing is they're basically cannibalizing that they could win broad-based elections in the future to, fuel this fire of intensity that's ultimately shrinking them. And it's, I guess sense if you're in it, and they live in these media bubbles, and especially now where it's so, parallel. The Republicans really exist in their own ecosystems, and for them, it just seems like what they need to do to keep going. But they're throwing away their chances for the next election or two at a minimum by going this route, because this is so unpopular that they'll probably be able to get away with it in the short run as far as protecting Trump and sweeping this away. But going down this path, rather than rejecting him, if they were actually thinking strategically, they would reject short run, but build up in the long run. But they're doing the opposite. They're making a terrible mistake right now defending him in the hopes of keeping this intensity alive. But that intensity is just shrinking them. It's getting crazier and more inflamed. But what it's not doing is growing them. Ultimately can't win going that path. That just, it's going to render them, just angry and frustrated and, but also impotent and useless. So this is really great for us, even though it's horrible for the country.
Well, all I can say, since I have to go back, and speaking of extremism, I'm doing my research right now. I'm going back to stream, but you try to dog whistle and get American citizens to have a violent overthrow of the government. I believe that's sedition and treason, and there's only one penalty for it. I know they're trying to impeach him.
There's technically more, but
all I can say before I leave is, why aren't they treating it as what it is? And I think that if they don't, that's going to be the last mistake they're ever going to make. But I have to go, and I thank you, Cypher, so much. And
you're more than welcome to come
Mateo,
on
it's nice
every
to
time.
see you again. And Art, it's very good to meet you. We're going to go. We're just gonna, my community today is just gonna play. I've got some research to do, and then we're just gonna play all night.
Awesome.
So anybody wants to come by and watch us, it's a hoot. Trust me. I'm gonna sign out. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you all again next week.
For sure. Go ahead and drop your link to your channel in the chat before you leave. Thank you, Henry.
Okay. I'll try to figure that out, how to do that.
All right, I gotta move people's videos around, so let me go ahead and do that.
There, okay. Let me sign off now. Bye-bye. How do I sign off?
There should be a hang up button. I can disconnect you though if you can't find it. Oh, she found it. All right. Well,
it never found its way back.
No, he actually said in chat, Designated Downer actually said in chat that he's having so many issues that he's just gonna give up and to not interrupt anymore. So it was fair point. So what do you guys want to talk about? I think we should talk about the Taylor Greene stuff. But we can talk about something else before we talk about that. I think it's a good comment.
Was Dylan going to join us?
Not that I'm aware of. Did he say something in chat? I don't have Facebook up when I'm holding.
Oh, that was earlier today. It may have been something else.
I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna get the video stuff moved around, but yeah, go ahead and talk, guys. You want to talk about the Taylor Greene stuff?
What is she up to now?
No.
Yeah, is she doing stuff still? Because that's gonna be hilarious.
Her being censured happened after we were live last, so we should talk about the censure. Or not the censure, getting kicked off a committee.
I honestly don't think it's like they didn't kick her out of Congress. I mean,
yep.
There's plenty of things for people to do that aren't on committees. So it's, for a freshman, it was probably a lot for her anyway. So I don't know. I feel like it's not that big of a deal. And honestly, it was smarter for them to not kick her out, even if they could have kicked her out. Again, to be cynical and strategic, and people like that in place just to be what they are. So it's too bad.
I mean, that's a very fair point. I'm sure Mateo's made that too. He kind of made it today with the giving them enough rope to hang themselves.
She's such a liability. But also, like when Republicans do things like this, when it's just really like, how could you do that? Even though it's technically legal and you can, and it's all well within your rights. Now all of a sudden, like when Democrats do it, we're talking about basically what's the point of having Sorry, I had two different points I wanted to make, but I'm going with the other one instead because it's better. Like, what's the point of having minority positions in these committees if the majority side could just say, no, you're morally wrong for it because you said Rothschild.
Well, the way I look at that personally is that they're not. It's not like they're not getting that seat back. So it's not like it's the Republicans
Yeah, but the point is, it's the Republican seat to pick. They're the minority. Now it's just the majority will tell you who can sit there, which might be a slippery slope argument. But at the same time, we're talking about the Republicans. They don't say, "Oh, well, you got us good. We won't do it back." It's the Republicans. Like, they're the more childish of the two parties. They're going to remember this, and they're going to just, it won't be McConnell always, but I'm sure it'll be another Republican who's more than willing just to pull this type of crap. Right. Basically, yeah. When was the last time we even did it? It was like the 1800s, and for then it was probably still some crazy reason. Like,
it was the one. So when they did refuse to seat people in the 1800s, it was during Reconstruction, and it wasn't too crazy because the people that.
Well, I meant the other person was crazy. No, I meant
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, I just think it's just. There's no benefit from it. Even if you look at it from, I guess morally, yeah, it's a moral victory. It's like she said bad words and now she has been slapped. Like, I don't know.
They already.
But from every standpoint, she's A, a liability, and B, now the Republicans have a, hey, look what you guys did when it was your turn card to pull. And we all know that everyone's going to be like, this was different because, and then they're going to add things that are factually true, but don't make the comparison wrong. Like, it's just going to be like, it's different to you because it's. Yeah, it's a different party now. Of course it's different. There's a lot of differences. The point is that when you were the majority, you pulled this move, and they're going to do it. It's going to be so annoying because it's Republicans. It's going to be over something that's less egregious. It's going to be it's probably going to be Ilhan Omar type.
They already countered, and they tried to do that previously.
But they don't have any power now. If they ever do get power back, is when they're going to really pull it out. And the thing is, with Ilhan Omar, she is not saying anti-Semitic shit either. No. But if we go by the standards of, Rothschilds and you're also kind of a shitty right winger, then yeah, she's definitely saying anti-Semitic shit. But I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can say, no, neither of those are anti-Semitic. It's just some crazy kook. Like, if you're familiar with the econ circles of the internet, where I'm sure this crazy lady got it from, if not Zero Hedge, which might as well be the crazy circle of the internet.
There's more to her than just that.
She's a piece of garbage. You're not going to show any anti-Semitic stuff. You're going to show me something about Muslims and Arabs or something.
No. As far as the anti-Semitic person, as far as the anti-Semitic stuff, she has repeated Nick Fuentes' talking points, and Nick Fuentes is a no anti-Semite. He runs quote unquote the American First
What
Party.
Talking points did she say of his? Were they the ones that had nothing to do with anti-Semitism? Because if that's the case, we could brush this one aside.
It was things. It was similar
things
Rothschilds,
about. Don't even bring it up. If she said Rothschilds.
It was similar things that may have gotten Ilhan Omar in trouble, but since they're coming from Fuentes, it has more weight as being anti-Semitic because Nick Fuentes is a known anti-Semite.
Sure, it's fair to acknowledge, the elasticities among people, but at the same time, when you have such a hair trigger sensitivity to something,
I'll mute him.
That's a nice part of the
hold on.
Do you know what they're planning on building?
How do I? There, I think I got it.
But
nope. Okay. All right, hold on. There's got to be a way to do this. How do I do it?
So,
no. Audio
before any sensitive information is
right.
Okay, the credit card is.
Shoot, mute guest. There we go. I clicked the wrong button. There's a mute guest and mute and scene button on my director's panel. So Art has been muted. So once he comes back, that would be great. Thanks for the cheer, Kyle. Greatly appreciate that. Cheers, Mateo.
Mr. Rittenhouse, thank you.
Yeah. That's bad, dude.
Oh, it's not my friend Kyle? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not that Kyle.
No, I said my friend Kyle. It's a bad joke.
Gotcha.
It's a horrible joke.
But to your point, I understand where you're coming from, and it has merit. So I don't want people.
You jump at shadows.
With you.
Just get ready for people to expect you to jump at the next shadow, even if they know it's ridiculous. you can't take it like if Trump saying Mexico is sending rapists is Mexicans are rapists, then Ilhan Omar saying Israelis needing money or using money to control things. Like the interpretations are both loose enough to be within the same ballpark of bullshit, but only one side picks one and the other side picks the other, and it's suspiciously divided along political lines.
Of course,
like it's just it gets ridiculous after a while. Like, can't we just I don't know, just there are so many good criticisms. I bet you whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene, I bet you she said so many worse things than what I've been bombarded with because I've been kind of staying away from politics. So I'm getting the headline CNN type of crap these days. But like that's all I saw was Jewish space lasers, Jewish this, Jewish that.
Because it's the funny one. That's why. Because it's so out there.
But it was
and it's so ridiculous.
Like you have to be either a slime ball knowing you could trick people into thinking that Rothschilds equals Jews, or you're just so unfamiliar with the econ zone conspiracy theory shit to really fly that shit. It's just it was too much. And like I said, I bet you there are better examples of her
there's
that are
a
probably
ton.
Legit racist. Like, you know, you don't have to be like, oh, the Rothschild space lasers that got her.
I mean, she does a lot of the standard kind of NU Republican talking points, Rothschilds, you know, fucking.
Well, I wouldn't call that a Republican talking point. That's like a libertarian world.
New as in this is the thrust of where Trumpers and stuff are going with these things. So, you know, it's a standard, we'll say right-wing talking point to call BLM terrorist. Right.
Okay.
So she said these things too. Well, I'm saying that she said these things too. She also tried to say that.
Okay. Well, let me put it like this:
it wasn't
when curfew.
for.
Yeah, but hold on. During those protests where the riots broke out after the BLM protests, do you think all the BLM protesters went home at curfew? They're like, the cops say it's time to go home, guys. Yeah. So I mean.
No, but
tying the two together isn't that far apart. Like we got to be more careful with who we're.
But calling all BLM terrorist is a bridge too far. It would be similar to us saying
it's
that all
absolutely
Republicans are the people.
But was
that
it sold
rioted.
as a really stupid comment, or was it sold as racism? Back at it again, killing our children.
It depends on who you're talking
only
about.
If they're brown.
It depends on who you're talking about. So it was both. It was critiqued as both. It depends on what media outfit you're reading.
I feel like
because of how
the few people like me are probably like, yeah, she's an idiot. That was a really stupid thing to say. And then there's a ton of other people who are just like, oh, I know what that means. I've heard. That's the
sure,
and then they check notes like that's the dog whistle I have right here written down. Just like it's objective. Like they didn't just pull it out of their fucking ass at that moment. Like I don't know. It's just. I think it's really dumb. I think people always overplay their hand and then they give Republicans.
I mean, it's intended.
That is the beauty of the dog whistle, but that's the beauty. Like even when you're innocent, plausible deniability is still plausible deniability. You can be guilty and it can be plausible deniability or innocent. Like, and so you could look at an innocent person and be like, well, that's the beauty of denying you're guilty. It's like, sure, but it's just if you go too far, you're going to give too many people. You're going to give the opposing people ammo, and they're never going to believe you anyway. They're just going to brush you off when you finally have a good critique. Like, I bet you she said something, I think it was about Arabs. I bet you that was like legit bigotry. Well, and like that was not what was being sold to us.
Another one that she had said was that it was illegitimate for Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar to swear on the Quran. And therefore they weren't actual sitting members of Congress because they didn't swear on the Bible. And this is America. So
now, but I mean, this isn't just something she said. She left Georgia, went to DC.
She went there and confronted them,
and chased her around with the Bible and tried to get her to a Bible. So
see, this lady is insane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's all these factors together is why I'm like, well, she probably shouldn't even be sitting. Shouldn't be sitting in Congress.
No, exactly.
She's like a regular face in DC. She doesn't even live there. She's chasing people around.
I mean, she's clout chasing, right?
But like when we say like, oh, like if we do it to her, they'll do it to us. I'm willing to take that risk. Like you have some people who are just so off the rails. It's like, I personally think that we should hold politicians accountable. I don't care, even if we hold them too accountable. Like when, what's his name? Al Franken resigned.
Al Franken, yeah.
I don't care. Like, honestly, if you're holding these people to a higher standard than we probably should, I'm fine with that. Like, I really, like the idea of like censoring Green or even Omar, if she said some like kosher, then you know what I mean? Like I don't care about holding Christians a little bit too accountable. Like I think that the opposite is probably a bigger problem. Fine, we should probably hold their feet a little closer to the fire.
No, I completely agree with that, Art. I think the whole go ahead, Art.
When it sets the precedent that, like I said before, like the majority party can decide who sits in a committee based off of microcultural mores and folkways. I don't think that's holding them a little bit too accountable. She's being held accountable. That's no doubt. But the thing is, it's not going to help anyone out. I don't think it's just going to create more situations where the majority party just decides that a minority member can't sit there. It's like, you said something really bad. That's a bridge too far. I think we already said that. Whatever.
I mean, that's a cliche for a reason, right?
I guess.
Well, Operation Market Garden was no cliche, sir. So that was before airborne operation in the Netherlands. But yeah, I mean, the concerns. But honestly, like that's where I'm at. Like I'm willing to take that risk. Like I think that if you have I'd rather it abused than it get not used enough.
I mean, I think that's fair. I do think that this was a power grab. I just wish it was more of a power grab. I don't think she should be, because of how beyond the pale it is.
It's just, there's no
she's so white.
there's just no payoff though for it.
Exactly.
They're investing so much.
She should have been removed. She should have been removed from Congress. That's the proper.
And what's more is that she was actually hurting Republicans. Like we're talking about a liability. Like it's just cynically and morally, I think it's just. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say she should have been removed by Republicans. Yeah. The fact that she wasn't means it was right for the Democrats not to do it. Like if the Republicans don't see the value in getting somebody like that out, the Democrats were correct to not push for it. Even if they could have gotten away with it, taking her seats from the committees is fine. Trying to kick her out just because you're the majority party, that would have backfired. But I think that's just reading the situation correctly. Like ultimately, that's just a nuanced approach. That's probably the right way to go.
I don't think we should. I don't think Democrats should not do things because they're worried that Republicans are going to come and do it dumber. I think that people that wield power should wield it in a way that is just
well, that's
as
the difference between chess and checkers, I would say. I mean you got to think moves ahead. It's good. Things are going to be returned back. Okay, that happens.
No, for 100%. That's why I said they should have removed her.
You don't want it to be a situation where you basically just like you're giving them just a moral card to play. Like there wasn't any like real technical racism. It was just an interpretation of words. And Republicans, the we're the meek being fucking oppressed type of people that they are. They're going to pull that.
No, for sure.
You could say that's fine. You could say that's fine because that's how turnabout is fair game in politics. The thing is, when the turnabout is a brand new precedent that you're going to really hate when Republicans pull it out, it's different. Like you could look at yourself now and ask yourself, are you going to be like, well played, Republicans. We did that back in the day and you can do it now. No, you're going to be like, that's not what she said. And it's going to be.
I mean, everybody's going to be biased with it to a degree.
So how happy are you going to be when it actually comes? Like you could say now when there's no threat, it's the easy and safest thing to say. You'd be like, hell yeah, kick her ass. But it's going to be worse when the Republicans do it.
Something weird.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't.
It's all good. No, it's on my end. Sorry. Go ahead.
I could be wrong. There's no guarantee that Republicans are going to, go back. Like maybe we get some Mitt Romney wave where they're just like, let's just be cool for a decade or two and get things going. I just think the juice was not worth the squeeze, is to put it simply.
No, I can kind of agree with that. But if you want to go with the whole tit for tat argument, I think this could be seen as an escalation from when Republicans try to hold Ileana Omar account by specifically calling out anti-Semitism, and Democrats having to like maneuver in a way to where she gets like kind of slapped on the wrist, but we end up talking about bigotry in general. Like,
yeah, and the thing is, she probably never said anything that was that bad. That's what kills me about all this shit. You go anywhere near the Jew. Well, maybe she did that time. I don't know everything she said.
A little bit.
Yeah, if you see her old Facebook videos,
normally, though, the things I've heard her say.
Put it this way: we can't say what she said on Twitch. So
seriously,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
she's deleted a lot of this stuff, Facebook posts, which is just it's your. But and this is a funny thing. This is like the normal like drunk wine mom shit that you see on like next door all the time, where they're just talking about like. Gosh, I just don't understand. Why don't the blacks just do? Or I'm not going to finish
Taylor
some
Green.
of that stuff.
We're talking about Ilhan Omar.
Right.
So just
well,
to
now
make it clear.
That's what I'm saying. I can't
Omar,
imagine she said anything that bad.
She said she said hypnotize the world. So it's not
there.
It's bad. I'm not comfortable saying it on Twitch because that could be interpreted by people.
Did she say Israel does, or did she say?
Yeah. So there's some stuff that like when you take somebody who's raised in Somalia in a certain cultural context in a certain way, that here has got some way additional connotations. And on the far left, people are it's just like it's okay, but once you get closer to like the median of society, you're like, are you talking about the Jews? Like,
and
that's not fair to her either, though.
I mean,
sure, you apologize, but I still think that's not fair to her either. Like, we should be able to be. I mean, I would have to look at the quote. I can't really defend her. Actually, I don't want to get myself in trouble.
What you're saying is legitimate based on the quotes that she said and how she's apologized for it. It's just it's one of those things where people are like, wait a second, you're pulling the anti-Semitism.
You could, but a lot of things when you're really critical of Israel and.
Yes, that's the issue here.
But it's just, I don't know. I just think
like BDS.
Yes.
I just think people are extremely unfair to her too. They're unfair to anyone when it comes to Judaism. For sure. Actually, and it's been like that since World War II. And honestly, it's been decades. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we forget, but at the same time, don't act like everyone saying Jew is like possibly the skinhead next door, and we have to 100% break him down as fast as possible. Or in Elon Omar's case, maybe not the skinhead, but
right. I gotcha. For anybody that is watching, I do highly recommend an Intelligence Squared debate. It is called "Is Anti-Semitism or Is Anti-Zionism the New Anti-Semitism?" It has Brett Stevens.
That's a good one.
And oh god, I can't remember. Like, I only remember his name because I'm gonna be because I know him from other places. The other three people on the panel, I don't know except outside of this. But one of them was an Israeli member of parliament, and the other two people were Palestinians. And so Brett Stevens and his partner took on yes, that's the case, and the two Palestinians did not. And it's a fantastic debate, and it shows how hard it is to actually talk about this, because anytime anybody brings up any criticism of Israel, it gets turned into anti-Semitism.
Yeah, objective criticism is like taboo. If you're not like, you have to like give 20 disclaimers, you have to apologize for what you're about to say before you can even come close to saying certain things. And it's usually just not anti-Semitism, not anything. It's just because it could be construed that way by someone who will jump at any shadow that looks like it. And I could understand after World War II, that's going to be the zeitgeist. Obviously that's in everyone's head, but we're not dealing with that anymore. Like, we should be more worried about, or not. I'm not going to say what we should be more worried about, but I think it's time to realize that some people can criticize Israel without, harboring, bigotry towards Jewish people. It's a state.
Art, go ahead with your counterpoint, and then I'll read in Kyle's question.
Okay, so what's so twisted is that, just in a very neutral sense, you could look at us and look at Israel and say, well, this is a small country that we give a lot of money to, so we should probably question the means in which they use that money and like what those results are. Like, in theory, that should be no problem, but there's so much baggage like that is fairly and unfairly packaged around it that you can't really even add that discussion. Like what Mateo was saying, you need to have 50 disclaimers, and you need to go in and like establish your bona fides on like, on the left and on the right. And you really need to go in very delicately. And there's so much bad faith on all sides of the discussion. Any misstep immediately gets twisted into something that's not either what you meant, or it's just taking what you said, which is neutral, but adding a bit of that, oh, but did you hear that dog whistle that was in there?
Yeah.
It becomes a game of Ultimate Gladiator. You're just like,
yeah,
just trying to get the point across.
It's also bad faith. Like, you think about like for instance, like BDS. So in theory, if you want to have a movement where you boil, we do that all the time. Like we've been doing that forever. Like that was the original cancel culture. So, it's been an institution forever. If you want to do that, that in theory should be fine. In practice, a lot of the people that were into the whole BDS thing early on are kind of anti-Semitic. And that was the thing where they're not just against Zionism, but they hate Jews. So, but there's so many legitimate critiques of Israel that one could have. Sometimes some of these things are a convenient way to package anti-Semitism by saying, this is just anti-Zionism. We love Jews. And it's bad faith. So you get these, what angle you look at, you're just surrounded by these bad faith actors who are intent on either legitimate things or illegitimate things as shields or points of critique. And it's so infuriating to even try and discuss any of this stuff because it's nothing but like this mountain of like airport baggage. It's just this conveyor belts of baggage that we're just like getting buried under, and you don't even want to bother with it. Like Israel and abortion are like my two least favorite things to discuss because it's just all baggage.
Yep.
Like you can't even, there's no topic. It's just all baggage.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
100% agree with you, Art. So we do have a question from Kyle. It says, curious if the shoe were on the other foot. Had Trump said what she said, would no one have called him out? Had Bernie said what she said, would no one have called him out? To the latter question, or to both questions, I can say yes, that they would get called out. Trump has been called out numerous times or not Trump, but Republicans, anybody that's like Trump-ish has been called out for things that have approached anti-Semitism. To what Art was just saying with the bad faith debates, that's something that Nick Fuentes does all the time. He just tries to say it, and it's 100% BS. He's just an anti-Semite. He's trying to couch it in a certain way to make it more palatable to mainstream conservatives. Until they show up and start asking JQ questions into who's that guy, the Turning Points guy? I can't remember his name right now.
Small face, big head.
Small face guy.
Yeah.
I don't know his name. I only see the videos sometimes.
Charlie Kirk. Yes.
Okay.
Charlie Kirk. So they showed up and did that whole thing. Bernie Sanders had been called out for some of his stuff, and that's just
Sanders is the last person, who's going to say anti-Semitic shit.
He's
not even because he's Jewish, not even that, just because of his who he is.
Yeah.
If he says anything about Jewish people and it sounds bad, you're safe assuming that it's just a tasteless joke or something from Sanders.
I love the fact that he's like a second cousin to Larry David, like that they're like vaguely related. So
he actually is too.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. So
That's
I hope that answered your question, Kyle.
Well, hold on.
That's my opinion on it. Go ahead. No, go for it.
No, I was just going to make a joke. I was going to say, when the Rothschilds send their people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people who want Benjamins.
Oh, man. That's bad. We're getting canceled for that one.
Yeah, well,
it's all good.
Small gap between Rothschild and I guess.
Right.
I don't want to say it just in case Twitch. I don't even know how Twitch works. Like I said a fucked up word the other day, and I thought I fucked her whole account up.
Oh no, it's all good. So I guess do you guys want to talk about meme stocks? I know it's a favorite issue, a favorite topic of Mateo's. Mike's been talking about it a little bit. What's up?
We're just really move on because we're talking about bad faith debates. I love the fact that Brianna Joy Gray names her podcast Bad Faith Debates because she's literally the most bad faith actor on the internet that I can think of. And I more or less aligned with her politics than not, but oh my God, is she incapable of making an honest argument? Like it is surreal. And the fact that she would actually try and own that really blows my mind.
I am not putting a name to the face right now. Cool.
So she used to be a campaign, like some kind of manager for Bernie, and Bernie actually eventually had to renounce her because she's just like off the rails.
She's that woman on Twitter that everybody likes to point out, and I know who you're talking about. One of thousands,
But like, it's just funny because they had this interview with what's his name that sent the neurolinguistic programming guy.
Did
Noam Chomsky.
Oh, Norman. When you said neuralistic programming, I'm like, that's not who I was thinking of. But yeah, I just saw that. I Googled it really quick. So yeah.
They had an interview with Chomsky where Chomsky was basically like, look, you should vote for Biden and this is why. And they had these like inane like rebuttal. He's just like, yo, like, I'm just telling you, like, you're looking at harm reduction, this and that. He like walks him through it. They're just like, yeah, but like what? Like, do you know that he's a warmonger? He voted for the war in Iraq, and he's like, yes, that's like
I can't believe
least.
Chomsky even sat with them. Like, I disagree with him so much on so much stuff, but that dude is an intellectual. You know, for him to actually sit through that is got to be
another level of a person.
painful.
Honestly.
And so he and Virtual Text, or she and Virtual Texas go like interview this guy. It was like I was like an hour and a half or something, and like he was very nice, but he just kind of like very children just breaks it down for them, and it was a humiliation for them. And the fact that they didn't realize it, like they like, took some stuff, like they try and make it look good, but like even like their fans are like, yeah, I don't know, he kind of owns you guys, like around, like you guys are like you're strutting around, but like that's actually not how it went. But like it is. I'm
starting to think about the world a little differently.
Right, it's unreal, like how bad faith she is, and it cracks me up that she would actually call her podcast the Bad Faith Podcast when she's like objectively bad faith in like almost all of her arguments. It's hilarious.
No, I know what the one you're talking about is. The kind of trump card that he would pull out was like climate change, and it came out a number of different times, and it's a good one, because if you think
it's a great argument.
Yeah, if you think climate change, like they do, is an existential threat to humanity, you have to vote for the person that's going to make that better. So
yeah, but what about the 1991 crime bill? And and Chomsky's like, that was 40 years ago. Like, who gets
pales in comparison?
Like,
that's
he goes.
Sorry, that's one of the best things that came out of the whole like 2016 cycle was the people like, oh, the crime bill, look what Hillary did. It's like so long ago. Maybe it seemed less long ago back then, but that was only 4 years ago. Sorry,
Bernie voted for the crime bill. Yeah, everybody voted for the.
It was 98-2.
It was 92. Everybody was in favor of it.
It's the same argument you get with the Iraq war. It's like everyone could foresee all the bad things that would happen, and they still voted for it, right? It's like no one actually thought the worst parts of the process that happened afterward would happen. You can't just be like, oh, he signed for the crime bill. He hates black people.
No, they knew, and that's why they voted for it. They're warmongers. That's all they want.
They're acting like it's called the mass incarceration bill and like systemic racism multiplier or something. It's like you voted for it.
I'm doing a live correction. It was 95-4 with one person not voting. And Bernie Sanders was one of the 95s that voted. Now, he voted for it and did say, hey, I believe these things might happen. Overall, the bill is better. But he still voted for it. So
that's all I'm saying is that like all these people that are freaking out over stuff that happened forever ago. And Chomsky's just like, yeah, but like, warming, like, trans rights, like, do you guys, what about like right now? Like, do you not care about this stuff? And they're like, well, yeah, but segregation in the 1974, the busing, and he's like, what? Like,
just going down the whole list of meme arguments.
There's meme arguments. That's all it is.
That's all it is. And he's just like, yeah, well, okay, I hear you, but we got problems that we want to fix, and then they go right back to their like skit.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this joke, but blue eyes, white privilege, go. Anyways.
Cricket.
Yeah, no, I hate you all. But yeah. So, thank you for bringing up a point. So, meme stocks.
I'm sorry, meme stocks. Yes, meme stocks.
Mateo, what are your thoughts on like this whole like now we had GME, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Now we have hilarious. All these pot stocks going up. What's going on with that? Is that because is that real, or is that kind of a ephemeral kind of thing with like GME?
Well, they do this all the time. They've been doing this since like Obama was around. You get news about legalization and people go nuts. They go buy the stocks up like crazy and they pump them like crazy. Everyone thinks it's going to be this great deal, and then the legislation that either does pass or doesn't pass, is underwhelming, and everything kind of goes back down. There's a ratcheting effect where everything's kind of, staying up a little bit more than it was before the previous pump, but this is just another one of those. Basically, we had, I think the Wisconsin governor was saying he's for legalization. Michigan was, or no, someone else was saying something. Pass. Okay.
I think that was
New York's been flirting with it since I don't even know when, since like 2012. It's just, there's a lot of good news for it, and it's just pumping them up like crazy. Plus, it's memeable as hell. If you think about the Wall Street Bets community, the thing we've all heard about by now, whenever they make memes about their stocks going up, they have nothing to do with weed. It could be anything. When they have like a hypothetical funny percentage for their increases, it's almost always 420, percent. And if they want to make it like a really big percent, it'll be 420, 69%, like stupid shit like that. So these stocks are easily memeable. So the second that any air of whatever, whenever weed stocks start hitting the news, these people go crazy, and now they're pumping them up. I don't think these companies are worth that much. They're going to have to come down eventually, unless widespread legalization happens. But I'm happy they're up like this also.
Disclaimer, we are not giving financial advice. We're just talking about our opinions. Have to do that every time we talk about this because we are a legal entity.
We're not.
I mean,
unless I'm really going over something, we're fine.
All right. Well, better safe than sorry. So I'm just going to disclaim it.
Fair enough.
But yes, as far as legal entities concerned, we are in the process of setting up a nonprofit. The nonprofit currently is called Crowdsourced Politics, but we're changing that to the Crowdsourced Tribune, and we're trying to become more of a integrated media and social community. So we're trying to do more podcast stuff. We're trying to do some articles, and we're also trying to run a social community. So be on the lookout for more news about that coming within the next month or so. But I guess we can't talk about meme stocks without talking about Doge and Elon Musk pumping 1.2 billion into Bitcoin. 5 billion now. 1.5. Oh, okay. 1.5 billion into Bitcoin. So what are your guys' thoughts about this?
Two of the biggest bubble looking I mean, Tesla, if you know how to value stocks, when you look at that price, it makes no sense. They don't make money selling cars. You know where they make they make pennies as it is.
Yeah.
Or not pennies, but compared to their valuation. You know what they do? They don't sell cars, they sell carbon credits. Yep. That's it. They don't make money on cars. So that price is absolutely insane. I'm not saying it has to crash.
Well, he gets plenty of money in government grants and rebates and all that.
So, I mean, for the stock price to be up there is just insane. And the same thing with Bitcoin. I mean, I call Bitcoin digital tulips. I mean, I'm probably going to be proven wrong in the future anyway, but it's really just a collectible. It's a digital collectible. Whether or not it becomes a widespread financial instrument, that's yet to be seen. I mean, I think it could behave like gold.
You can already buy futures in it. You can already do other options in it.
I don't know. I just
lost your video.
I'm like a boomer when it comes to crypto. You lost my video?
No, you're up. You're up again. It just.
Sorry. What are?
Go ahead, Art.
Something like Ethereum that could be useful, like more like business applications as far as.
That makes some sense, but at the same time, it's like, where's the price for it then? I mean, saying it's going to be useful is one thing. Saying it's worth X amount of dollars is a totally different thing, and I cannot say it's worth. I don't know, and that's basically how I am with all collectibles. That's why I call it a collectible. Really, I just
we don't have our collectibles
just to run up its head. It's like it's so insane. There's like how much competition is there anyway? There's like 7,000, 8,000. Yeah, there's like 8,000 now, and I bet you there's like 4,000, a month ago. It's the barriers to entry are so low that anyone can compete. Bitcoin is where it is, I think, just because it was first to market, kind of. I mean, at least first to make it to celebrity status. I mean, maybe there's another coin that some, historian about crypto could be like, well, actually, but
no, it was Bitcoin.
Bitcoin was okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's really first to market. There is a price for it. I'm not comfortable saying what that is, and that's why I don't put my money in it.
Speaking of a price for it, but I saw today that the amount of energy being used to mine Bitcoin.
Can you say that again?
Today, the amount of energy that is being used to mine for Bitcoin is higher than the entire energy consumption of Argentina.
Yep.
Like it's actually working its way up, like as far as this list of countries, because so many people
Argentina mines a lot of gold too, right?
Well, and this is another funny thing. Like you think about something like gold, like you have some of these precious metals that, several uses. Like there's actually, some need for silver, for instance, like silver, you use it in products. And arguably you could say, well, cryptocurrency, you could use it to buy, drugs or humans, and
Money laundering.
money laundering in a way that's, let's say there's some value in being able to avoid law enforcement. So, I'll grant them that there's some, useful, attribute to that type of product. But this idea that like gold is held in people's minds as far as like, oh, civilization crashes, you're going to want to have gold. Gosh, what are you going to do if you don't have gold in your portfolio? Like that sort of thing is just like, it always blows my mind that has any traction at all. But the thing is, it does. It's got a huge amount of traction. And because it does, even though it's silly, it has its own value because people believe it. So Bitcoin, I think, is in that same, and a lot of other cryptos are in that same realm where it's like, it's stupid, but people believe it. But if enough people believe it, then it's got value.
Yep, and that's exactly why it's got like, what is it, 42K
like Beanie
right
Babies.
now. Let me look up
like
Bitcoin
Beanie
price
Babies, exactly.
That's why I don't know. I'm just a big crypto, whatever you want to say.
Skeptic.
Yeah, but I was going to be meaner, but yeah, skeptic words.
Bitcoin right now
I
on
just talk a lot of
Coinbase
shit.
is $44,354.51 a coin.
Could
when
be
it
too
was-
high, could be too low.
When it was
I don't
first
know.
introduced, people with regular computers can mine 100 of them an hour. Think about
Damn.
that. Like, that's why there's so many. That's why there's so much it missing, inaccessible because people lost their computers, wallets, passwords, or whatever. So there's something like 2 or 3 million coins that are just poof, never going to come back because they're inaccessible, and that's why, because the
I
price
love
was
that
so
so
low.
much.
My
God, I love that.
my best friend, he built someone a website and they were going to give him $100, and instead they sent him Bitcoin. And he was pissed, but he was like, oh, maybe I can buy a pizza with it or something. And during its last crazed phase, he's like, oh, maybe I can find the thumbstick it's on. Because it was like, he had like 50 of them and it was like 20K a coin or something like that. Couldn't find it. I had 30,000 Doge coins that I mined because it was funny, and in like 2012 or some crap. And at the time it was like 10 cents a coin or something ridiculous. So
Yeah, mining is something I would maybe do. Like if I had solar energy, then
that's why I'm
okay, let it ride. I'm gonna mine all day. I don't mind collecting these, having them build up on my own, like without even lifting a finger. But as far as changing my Federal Reserve notes for him, I'm a little skeptical.
Wasn't Sean saying he makes like $5 or $10 just letting his
Sean's crazy with crypto. I don't know what he does, but he knows a lot of shit about that.
So Sean, what Sean was saying is that there is the graphic cards he was trying to get sold out super quick, and with Ethereum, that graphic card made like on its own $5 a day or something. I have a couple of miners, and I make anywhere between 0.48 coins to 0.5 coins a month, which right now is about $1,000 a coin, or about $1,000 a month in just mining if I sold it. So it's stupid ridiculous.
Nice.
It's very energy intensive. I'm glad that Ethereum is going to proof of stake, which is going to cut out its energy consumption by like 90% or something ridiculous, because it's going to go to server farms.
What percentage of Argentina? Sorry, I always interrupt. What percentage of Argentina's electricity is used on gold mining? Because when you think about it, if it's that much to mine crypto, like it's all of what Argentina uses.
Yeah.
100% of Argentina. Oh, true. Yeah, maybe I gotta look at it a little bit.
So what Art was saying is that worldwide, the amount of energy consumed just to mine bitcoins is the same amount of energy that Argentina consumes a year. So
yeah, I was thinking of a comparison, but it doesn't work now that I think of it.
A lot of these places where a lot of the industrial mining places are using renewable energies. There are people that have set up dams. They've set up dams in order to create batteries to power the miners. There's also been people that have found like old underground bunkers and not icebergs, but something else to keep the cooling cost ridiculously low. So they're like mining out in the middle of the ocean.
Microsoft, yeah, they have I mean, it's not for mining, but it's like a data center that they're keeping underwater.
Yeah,
which is just for the cooling costs. I mean, it's a really bad idea when you think about it scaled out, because we're just going to put a bunch of heat into the ocean. But when you do one, it seems cool.
But yeah, so it's a ridiculous thing. As Art was saying, Ethereum actually has uses beyond a currency. Bitcoin does not. Bitcoin is pretty much an asset at this point, like gold. It's a good store of value. If you put $100 into Bitcoin like a year ago, that same $100 is like 10K now.
I love the collectible analogy.
Well, there's crypto kitties, so there's actual digital collectibles too.
That's actually why I kind of came up with it, because there's no difference between a crypto kitty and a crypto coin. It's just they call one a kitty and one a coin. They're all collectibles, really.
To it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, stable coins might make a currency, but when you talk about currency, you don't want something that goes up and down in value, like gold or Bitcoin.
Stable coins are cool. What makes Ethereum as a useful tool is its ability to do smart contracts and to store all the information in a consensus way. So that means if you wanted, you could use this for businesses. You could have one person, you could have two different signatures come in, and it would store that contract forever on the network. So you can attach pretty much any information to the network. It'll be distributed up among the coins, and all the miners come together and say, yes, that's what's going on right now, because it's on a block, right? And a block is just basically a piece of data. And so you can have these things. Yeah. So you can have these things like that have actual uses. Decentralization is something that some people like. I'm not really concerned about it, but yeah.
What happens when a quantum computer can crack that the code?
Then you're going to get spoofed bitcoins.
That's what I'm saying.
However, Ethereum is already going towards quantum protection.
I was going to say they're going to have
working on that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, that encryption is just going to have to get crazy complicated.
Yeah,
because that's really all it is. It's once you could brute force something like that, which I guess they assume quantum computers will be able to do.
Yeah.
Imagine brute forcing something like that. Like, no password is safe at that point.
Nope.
Like, I mean, forget about crypto. Your password alone is just going to be just in an instant decided or figured out.
The first government that cracks quantum computing on the level beyond like theoretical and practice is going to dominate the entire world as far as like hacking or whatever else. So this is definitely a race to that. And China is one of the people that are leading it, actually. So it's something that is another thing we should all be kind of concerned about.
I mean,
true.
Yeah.
What else you guys want to talk about? We got about 30 minutes or so. We've been streaming for about an hour and 30 minutes. I'm going to be joining Tomfoolery tonight at some point. I don't know if it'll be at exactly 9 Eastern, 8 Central or not. I'll see. He has other people on. I'm sure if you guys want to stick around, I'll probably get you guys onto the show as well.
I would like for us to have a moment of silence. Larry Flint has died.
What?
Oh,
wait.
It's I don't know how I'm gonna get through with things in the future, but I will move on. I will get stronger after this.
Yeah, definitely moment of silence.
Oh no.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, but he died.
Larry Flint is the reason why we have free speech the way we do. So, yeah, it's actually soming that many
there is actually a lot of history.
What a dirtbag! Like, seriously, like, you gotta love that guy. I mean, like, that guy's a stone cold dirtbag. Like,
that's not an insult to him. So we're not speaking ill of the dead.
No, I'm not speaking ill of the dead. No, he would love.
He's
absolutely.
Objectively a dirtbag.
He's objectively a dirtbag. No, yeah, but oh my god! But certainly an American icon in a way.
If you want to see a good movie that sums it up, The People versus Larry Flint, Edward Norton, and
that was good.
I don't remember the guy's name.
No, what's his name? Oh my god, the guy's so funny.
It's both. Edward Norton's his lawyer.
Yeah,
I just don't remember the other guy's name.
It's what's his name? Okay,
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson,
and Courtney Love. So
yeah.
Courtney Love, really?
Yeah. Good movie.
I'll be right back.
All right. What kind of other major stories? Last week there's not been any updates as far as I've seen about the things that we talked about last week in terms of the Myanmar and Russian protest. Yes.
I don't know.
Panda, Woody Harrelson played Flint. Thank you for clarifying. I hadn't seen anything. Have you seen anything about that, Mateo?
About what?
Has there been any updates with the Russian protests, or any major updates, I should say, about the Russian protests or the Myanmar? I'm
not too sure. I mean, I've been kind of disconnected from a lot of this stuff lately, so if there has been, I haven't really heard anything.
Women shot at protest fights for life. So like, apparently there was a major. It has been a major protest against it, the coup, and it appears that there has been one seriously injured woman, 19-year-old Mai Thwei. I cannot pronounce that. Kying. I'll put it in chat. Put it in the chat for everybody. She had been shot and is currently in serious condition. So there has been that. Outside of that, I have not seen anything else about Myanmar. I know that it's still under military rule, but there are.
Yeah, I mean, calling it a
protests.
coup is kind of, false because it was never given to the people.
Sorta, kinda. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They did it to look better. Like, they've been getting criticism for that for decades, and they kept control. It was just
totally.
Yeah, like I was studying Southeast Asia in school when this happened, and I had like reports on everything, and basically it was still the military's to take. So like, almost calling this a coup is almost like it's like your dad taking away something you had when you were growing up, and that's a stupid comparison.
What would you call a shadow government coming back into the foreground?
Daddy's home. Like, it's just they're reclaiming what they basically low key said they're going to reclaim if they want to. I mean,
yeah, they
didn't give it over to the people for a reason, because if they want to take it back, they're gonna. Like, it's just, I want a lot of good things to happen in Myanmar, and I don't think that's happened yet. And I think too many people were willing to like say like we did it, almost to the point where when this did happen, now we're all like, how could this happen? It's a coup. And it's like, that's just Myanmar. That's Myanmar being Myanmar.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Another update is, and Joe Biden had said this last week, but it appears that the military officials, some of the major military officials, will also be sanctioned for the coup. Let's see if I can. I can't read this full story because it's.
They can't bank in the United States anymore?
Yeah, it's going to be probably some assets frozen. Yeah, in addition, the U.S. is taking steps to prevent. Actually. In addition, the U.S. is taking
military
steps.
People over there are rich as fuck.
In addition, the U.S. is taking steps to prevent military leaders of Myanmar from accessing about $1 billion in Burmese funds held in the U.S. by freezing those assets. So that is also a thing that is happening. Let me say Myanmar sanctions. Oh, good. Associated Press. And I can read this article. So Biden quotes, "The people of Burma are making their voices heard, and the world is watching. We'll be ready to impose additional measures, and we'll continue to work with our international partners to urge other nations join us in these efforts." Basically, anytime the U.S. sanctions anybody, the rest of the world gets on board, because we're still the banking epicenter, or I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, it does carry a lot more weight. Like, I was kind of being flippant about it, but you're absolutely right.
So Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, supporter of Suu Kyi, said he appreciated Biden's ongoing engagement with Congress on prompt and practical steps to restore democracy in Burma. And this is a generational thing. We all know, or people younger I'll say younger than 40 will probably know Burma more as Myanmar. Burma is basically the name of the country for the Burmese, but it's a multi-ethnic country, which we've
I thought,
talked about
didn't they
before.
find it offensive to call it Burma?
Yes. So
yeah, it's like calling. Yeah.
It's a generational thing. So older Burmese or older people from Myanmar tend to also call it Burma still. So it's in my experience, it's more of a generational thing. But that's just my limited experience in this.
Well, it's definitely generational. I just thought it was more like, the older generations of Westerners call it Burma more than it's the older Myanmar people do. But I don't know. I don't want to say that's wrong because if they're used to calling it that, they're going to call it that. Exactly.
So
I worked.
I was just gonna let loop in. We're just talking about Burma, Myanmar, and the ongoing coup d'état
from Burma in like the early 90s, and she was actually kind of offended that they had changed the name. Like she felt that it was a way for the generals to try and basically just confuse the world as to where you were even talking about. Like she's like in America. And she's like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's reasons to go either way. But for her, she's like, they're just trying to make it sound like it's some other country. They're referring to Burma, and they're just trying to like her opinion was that they're just trying to confuse the world. I don't know if that's anything more in her early 20s and maybe didn't know anything. But, she was like, Burmese. So, or Myanmar.
Burmese is one of the ethnicities in Myanmar. There are, I don't want to say an exact number, so there are others. We know the Rohingya, Burmese. There's Chinese. There's ethnic Chinese there as well. So it's a multi-ethnic country.
It might have been like an anti-British thing too. It's not really around anymore. So they're like, yeah, fuck it, call it Burma. I don't know that much. I thought it was more of a big deal though. I thought it was like Mumbai.
Hard to know.
Or Mumbai and Bombay, but I could be wrong.
It is similar to that as well. So it's a confluence of factors, for sure.
Yeah, but the more I talk about it, the more I realize I'm not sure. So I just want to make that clear.
Right. No, I gotcha. So Art, I don't know if you heard us, but what do you think about the Biden administration and Congress levying sanctions on military leaders of Myanmar?
That's fine. I mean, when you get down to it, if you want to look at like an ideal American foreign policy in broadest strokes, you probably want to generally make life harder for people that are going to have military coups, make it easier for democracies. And without going overboard with military act or any type of really aggressive maneuvers, as a general rule, if we can do things to just tilt the deck so that if you're a democracy liar and if you're an authoritarian regime of whatever kind, it's harder, that's fine.
Okay. Do you think that the freezing of the general assets of Myanmar is problematic at all?
I think if you're targeting rich people and people like the travel ability of, like a lot of times we'll say, hey, if you're on this list of 50 people, you can't travel. And if you have assets, we're going to freeze those assets. That's fine. I mean, they're ultimately...
Just so I'm clear, what about assets that are owned by the country, but the military people might have access to it?
Like I said before, the military always owned the country. It was always
right. That's why I'm asking.
I don't love sanctioning them. Yeah, I don't love sanctions in general because it's usually only the poor people that suffer. Now, if you can mess with the rich people as far as their personal luxuries, that sort of thing. It's funny, but we used to fuck with the Kim family in North Korea, going after their brandy supply. There's all kinds of little things you can do to mess with the rich. Mm-hmm. If you do broad-based sanctions, you're only hurting poor people.
Gotcha.
So unless you've got a real specific way to reach out and touch people, and let's say that you're some dictator and you've got money in the Cayman Islands or some bank in some island in the Mediterranean, go for it. Mess with those guys. I'm fine with that. But I don't love the idea of withholding aid or medical supplies or whatever. That's you're not pressuring the guys who have money. They don't give a shit. You're only just hurting the poor people there. So I'm as long as you're targeting it in the right way, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. The sanctions that are going on in Venezuela are not as targeted, and they are very much more broad based. It is being done specifically to try to turn the population against Maduro, and as we've seen, that doesn't necessarily work. They can push them together, so everybody's hurting under the same boat, kind of thing. So.
Well, and you get down to it, and like let's say Cuba or something. Like you want to like show the life's heroes, and they should not be happy. Okay, like life's hard, they're not happy, but that doesn't mean that they can do anything. Like have 70 years in some country and not change anything other than just have the average Joe have a shitty life. Like in instances like that, it's more than like actual useful policy. So I don't love that. I feel like that's not really a great way to go. But anytime you can do something that specifically in power, that's fine. Like I just don't love these broad-based like sanctions or blockade, anything that's just going to wind up hurting the little guy, and it's not really going to change anything. Like that, you can't make these guys super weak and then hope them to rise up. That's not how it works.
No, that's fair. That's 100% fair. Dang it! I did it again. Give me a second. I did it again, guys.
Co-host.
I fucking exited out of it.
Good, because I don't want your responsibility. I was going to start reading the Twitch.
You gotta watch them hands. Do we get any good questions from Twitch?
We have not. If there's anybody that's watching us, you like to ask us questions, we do try to answer them. Still try to answer them as much as possible. And only with the analysis only we can provide. So. And if you want to get onto the show, let me know, and we can also get you. I love it when my
contact rolls back.
Wait, I'm sorry. Were you talking? Do we have any questions from Twitch? I'm sorry, I totally missed that.
No, we don't. We don't have any questions right now from Twitch. Okay. Is there any other topics you guys want to? The point about sanctions was interesting. Yeah. No, I think if you watch Turing News and some of the other streamers on Twitch, I think there is kind of a consensus about sanctions in general. Sanctions really are war by other means. In the most part, it is to try to exert political pressure upon generally upon a populace in order to get changes that you want. So it will be seen, and it's fair to see it as an act of war.
What's funny is sometimes they don't work and sometimes they do. And I believe, as much as you want to say about Trump, how bad he was in Iran, they were working. But Trump ruined that when he bombed Soleimani.
And we did a live episode about that. It was one of our first ones.
I just love how it's like, because it just, this reminded me of it. It's just so funny. Like, because it's very limited where it actually works, where the population actually blames the leader for it instead of blames the one sanctioning them. And this was like that one time where it was actually working, and Trump's just like, let's drop some bombs. And then they're all just united against us after that. Not even just them, a lot of Iraqi Shia also as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so like the one time it actually was working, we fucked that up.
Screwed it up. I think some of the sanctions that targeted Eastern European leaders in the 90s and early 2000s also worked, and those are because it was targeting the leaders and not the population. You can get people to do what you want through the stick as long as it's done in a targeted manner. So I think that's fair to say as well. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? I'm kind of out of topics, and it's about we've been streaming for about an hour and 50 minutes.
I've got 10 minutes left if we do have anything, but after that I gotta get going.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and wrap this up. Art, are you around?
I'm listening. I'm having a quick snack off screen.
Oh, no worries. I'll just make sure you can hear us. Do you have anything that you want to talk about before we end it?
I'm trying to think of anything else. It's like new and exciting news that we'd want to talk about, but right now you just have Biden having his cabinet nominated and pushed through. That's the big news. What?
Neum.
Near Tandem.
Yeah, Neum Tandem. She got called out today. I think that was fun. We can end it with that. So did you happen to see that call out that happened?
Yes, and honestly, I don't really understand that whole nomination. I mean, I get that like you have this like Democratic operatives that are all like, it's basically like a cottage industry of these guys just giving each other jobs, but like she is hated by conservatives. She's also hated by leftists.
The left. Yeah.
So like, and she's just like this weird caustic like personality that's just like for like the centrist Dems, and I get that, but like she kind of did her duty there, but like you can't really put her in some role where you need to then bring in conservatives and leftists. Like, it just seems like this is one of those times where the complaints that people bring about the establishment really come to ring true. It's like, did you really have nobody else you could nominate for this? Or did she just have so many chips to cash in? You just had to do it, even though it was a bad idea. And now everybody hates her. The Republicans hate her, Democrats hate her, but you've got like that like wedge of like establishment crony like bullshitters that are just like they're all in it together and just like, man, you just prove all their complaints points. Like it's this
Hillary Clinton and Kissinger are both shaking hands.
Right, exactly. It's like you couldn't resist, huh? You just had to just prove everyone right. And just show them that part of their complaint is totally valid.
Meanwhile, did Biden ever sign that executive order that was going on his first day to get rid of the kids in cages? That was day one. Still, maybe a lot more work had to be done.
Yeah,
no, they're free range children now. They're
the cages are bigger now, so
they're not cages.
As shitty as it is, there has been an influx of more migrant children coming through the border again. It could be
if they have an adult, just go, that's your parent. You're good. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. That's your parent.
These are
I don't separate families.
These are unaccompanied.
Well,
so
then, Cage them right up then.
So
sometimes,
but I'm saying like
throw them in some FEMA camps.
Yeah. Now, and this is kind of like the messed up thing, like. But like sometimes you do, do legitimately have like that are just using them to get across. Like there are weird instances where it's like it's not normal, but it happens. And
child
you do just kind of
human trafficking. That's easy to do.
That's what I'm saying. Like it does happen. So like it's messed up that they're just like, oh, you're just like stealing children. I'm like, well, a lot of these kids are already stolen. Like
some of them were, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you could prove they're part of a family, don't separate them. I mean, why would you do that? But if it's just like a guy, it's like, yeah, this is my niece or this is my daughter. It's like, show us. Like, you know how big human trafficking is coming out from Mexico. You got to prove something, buddy.
I mean,
and a lot of times they separate them sometimes. Like, hey, is that your uncle? And they're like, no, he stole me. Or like you'll get crazy stuff that'll happen where like, once you actually, and this kind of the reason is to talk to everyone separately. Sometimes when you separate people, you get different stories, and that's a problem. Like, it's fucked up. It'd be easier if 100% of the people coming were just refugees. They just need to be handled. But unfortunately, you do have that weird criminal element that's just it's up. Like, you can't ignore that.
It is a concern. I don't want that concern to overshadow what the Trump administration was actually trying to do, though.
Oh yeah, Trump is just zero tolerance. He just separated them no matter what.
And I mean, and they're trying to do some of that punitively, where they would just separate them to mess with you. But that's 1,000% different. But it's just the entirety of the issue gets a little gray, and better we would be able to like more honestly look at it and categorize things fairly. But that just takes resources and also the intent of people who are trying to not have this as an exercise in fuckery, but actually just trying to just do a difficult job.
Yeah, I think that it's a thing that both the left and the right need to like put more nuance in. Is the especially the immigration debate. There are bad faith actors on both sides of this issue, and I think it's not unfair to call that out when it happens. And I really, I will probably get some flack for that, but that it is true, and it's something that we as a community of Twitch streamers, as our own community, as people that have any sort of influence, should be willing to discuss in a more nuanced way. So.
Well, now it's safe for them to talk about it in a nuanced way. But when it was Trump in office, it was no kids in cages. That's my stance, and I'm sticking to it. Now it's all of a sudden, hold on, I had this notebook of nuance that I want to tell you. It's like because there's no consequences now. Now they look like an intellectual for doing it. Back when it was Trump, they better get angry and
but that's because again
it.
that's because of what the Trump administration as a policy was doing. They were using it as even though it's true, they were using it as an excuse. I was young during the Bush administration, but I'm pretty sure it was just a continuation of what we saw during the Bush administration. No, the Bush administration was actually the Bush administration was actually very compassionate when it came to immigration issues.
Oh no! In reality, they were. I'm talking about the criticism of it. Bush was a racist. You don't remember how racist everyone said he? And I was a kid during this time. I wasn't even that political.
The racist argument was in regards to black people. I don't recall.
Oh no, this was Mexicans.
That was Kanye.
I don't
Black
recall
is another one that he got hit with 1,000,000 times though.
I don't recall. I know. I'm saying I don't recall that, so I can't comment on it. That's all I'm saying. So.
Yeah, no. His immigration policies, Democrats were never like, oh, yeah, I could work with this guy. But if it was Donald Trump, it was kind of the same thing. Trump made it easier to be more like loud about it, but it was still very, very similar.
Well, it was Republicans that torpedoed the Bush administration's compromise, though. So and Obama's compromise. It was Republican hardliners that torpedoed both of those bills. It wasn't Democrats.
All right,
both of them.
So
that's okay.
I'm what I'm saying is like I don't recall him being called a racist in this regard. His immigration policies were actually a lot more nuanced and understanding. And the hardliners on the right were the ones that made it.
And now it's 2021. So, he's getting credit for the nuance and understanding.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's how it always works.
2 decades later.
But like I said,
I don't recall.
Safe.
Yeah, no, it was a crazy time when I wasn't even political. I just remember hearing a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah, I wish
there was more 16? Internet back then, man.
Right?
Yeah,
oh my god,
there's so much shit that's just not even like. I don't want to call it history because this is the internet, but there's just so much crap that I wish I at least put on a hard drive, like news articles that I'll never be able to Google unless it's like part of like New York Times throwback.
Oh man, I used to have a list of news articles that I wanted to pull up that were like, see, I fucking called it, but don't have that anymore.
Yeah, because basically I'm just like pulling shit out of like my memory, which I could even be remembering wrong, and
exactly. Well, everybody, it is now 9:00 Eastern, so we're going to head and call it a night. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope that you liked what you heard, so go ahead and share us with your friends. Hit that like button for the algorithm, hit the follow button, and as always, keep your head up through the political storm.